The medical bay on Station Kur-9 hummed with the soft blue light of Althani technology, casting everything in an otherworldly glow. Dr. Elliott Wade stood at the counter, filling out yet another requisition form for supplies that never seemed to arrive on time. 3 months into his deployment as the station's human liaison physician, and he still couldn't get used to the way Althani equipment pulsed like it was breathing. Dr. Wade. The voice came from behind him, melodic and precise. Your presence is required in examination room 4. He turned to find Dr. Ishara observing him with those distinctive amber eyes that seemed to glow from within. Her skin carried a soft violet hue that shifted to deeper purple along her cheekbones and temples, where bioluminescent patterns traced delicate lines like circuit boards beneath translucent skin. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with a graceful build that made her movements seem almost weightless. What's the case? Elliott asked, setting down his datapad. A compatibility assessment. She tilted her head in that particular way Althani had when they were being deliberately vague. Your expertise with human physiology is required. Elliott followed her down the corridor, trying not to notice the way other Althani medical staff went still as they passed. In 3 months, he'd learned to read some of their body language. The slight darkening of skin patterns meant interest. The complete stillness meant something more. Examination room 4 was empty except for the standard medical equipment. Where's the patient? Elliott asked. Ishara turned to face him fully, her luminescent patterns brightening slightly. There is no patient, not in the traditional sense. I don't understand. I have been observing you, Elliott Wade. She stepped closer, her movements deliberate. For 73 days, I have cataloged your behaviors, your responses, your compatibility markers. The assessment is complete. Elliott's pulse quickened. Compatibility markers for what? For bonding. She said it simply, as if discussing the weather. You meet all criteria. Your biochemistry, your emotional stability, your caregiving behaviors, all indicate optimal compatibility for an Althani reproductive bond. The words hit him like cold water. He'd heard about Althani bonding, their species' complex reproductive process that required compatible partners from other species to stabilize their genetic material. It was rare, highly selective, and utterly permanent once initiated. Ishara, I think there's been a misunderstanding. There has been no misunderstanding. Her patterns flared brighter, shifting from soft violet to deeper indigo. I have chosen you. The choice is made. Elliott held up his hands. That's not how this works. You can't just choose someone without asking them first. That's not consent. For the first time since he'd known her, Ishara looked uncertain. Her patterns dimmed slightly. The compatibility data is irrefutable. Why would you refuse optimal pairing? Because I'm a person, not a data point. He softened his tone, seeing genuine confusion in her expression. Bonding isn't just about biological compatibility. It's about choice, connection, understanding. She was quiet for a long moment, her luminescent patterns shifting through colors he'd never seen before, uncertainty made visible. I have made an error. Not an error, Elliott said carefully. Just a different approach than humans use. Explain. She moved to one of the examination chairs and sat, gesturing for him to do the same. It was the first time he'd seen her position herself at his eye level rather than looming above. Elliott sat. Humans don't choose partners based solely on data. We need time. Conversation. We need to learn each other's stories, our hopes, our fears. Bonding, at least the way humans think about it, happens gradually. This is inefficient, maybe, but it's how we build trust. Ishara's patterns shifted again, this time to a pale lavender that seemed almost vulnerable. Trust is the foundation of bonding for your species. It's the foundation of everything for us. She studied him for what felt like an eternity. When she spoke again, her voice carried a different quality, less clinical, more uncertain. I have caused you distress. This was not my intention. I know, and he did. He'd seen her care for patients, human and alien alike, with a dedication that went beyond duty. But intent and impact aren't always the same thing. Then I must learn your way. She leaned forward slightly. If I pursued compatibility assessment through human methodology, would you permit it? Elliott found himself smiling despite the surreal nature of the conversation. You're asking me on a date? I am unfamiliar with this term in this context. It means spending time together, talking, learning about each other without the pressure of bonding or compatibility assessments. Just being together. Her patterns brightened with what he was learning to recognize as interest. This is acceptable protocol? It's very acceptable protocol. Then I formally request to engage in this date process with you, Elliott Wade. She pronounced each word carefully, as if testing their weight. Something warm unfurled in Elliott's chest. He hadn't realized how lonely he'd been on this station, surrounded by people but never quite connecting. I'd like that. But Ishara, can we establish one rule? Specify. No more compatibility assessments without permission. And definitely no declaring me claimed without asking first. For the first time, her patterns flickered in a way that looked almost like embarrassment. Agreed. This is equitable. The next 3 weeks unfolded in a way Elliott never expected. Ishara approached dating with the same methodical precision she applied to medicine. But underneath her clinical exterior, he discovered something else, a sharp wit, a fierce protectiveness for her patients, and a vulnerability she rarely showed. They met in the station's observation deck during off hours, when the transparent aluminum walls offered views of the nebula beyond. Ishara would bring tea. She'd researched human preferences and somehow procured actual Earl Grey. Elliott brought stories from Earth, descriptions of things she'd never experienced. Rain, ocean waves, the smell of fresh bread. Your world sounds chaotic, she said one evening, her pattern shifting to a contemplative teal. Yet you speak of it with such longing. It's home, Elliott said. Chaos and all. Home. She repeated the word like she was tasting it. We Althani do not have this concept in the same way. We have origin points, genetic clusters, but not this emotional attachment to place. Is that why bonding is so important? To create that connection, her patterns dimmed. Bonding provides genetic stability. Without compatible partners, our species cannot reproduce. Each generation requires this merging with other species to survive. That sounds like a lot of pressure. It is the defining pressure of our existence. She turned to look at him, and in the nebula's light, her luminescent patterns seemed to echo the stars beyond. When I saw your compatibility markers, I believed I had found something rare. I did not consider that you might see it as a burden. Elliott reached out, then paused, remembering Althani touch protocols. May I? She extended her hand, palm up. When he placed his hand against hers, her skin felt smooth and slightly cooler than human, with a faint vibration like a current running just beneath the surface. It's not a burden if it's a choice, he said quietly. That's the difference. I am beginning to understand. Her patterns brightened where their skin touched. Your human concept of courtship, it builds trust through voluntary exposure of vulnerability. That's probably the most clinical description of dating I've ever heard. But yes, her patterns flickered in what he'd learned meant amusement. You mock my analytical nature. I appreciate your analytical nature. It's one of the things He stopped, the word hanging unspoken between them. One of the things you what? Her voice was soft. One of the things that makes you who you are. She was quiet for a moment. Then, your pulse has elevated. Your pupils are dilated. Your biochemistry indicates emotional arousal. Ishara, this is not clinical observation. This is me noticing you, Elliott Wade, as you notice me. The observation deck suddenly felt smaller, more intimate. Yeah, he said, that's exactly what it is. Then I wish to accelerate the courtship protocol. Elliott laughed, the sound echoing off the transparent walls. That's the least romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Romantic, she tested the word. Emotional connection through non-logical means. Yes, I wish to be romantic with you. You're really bad at this. I am attempting to learn your inefficient bonding methods, but her patterns were bright with that flickering amusement again. Okay, lesson 1 in romance. Don't call the person you're interested in inefficient. Noted. She shifted closer, their hands still touching. Lesson 2? Lesson 2 is sometimes the best thing to do is stop analyzing and just feel. Her patterns shifted through a cascade of colors, uncertainty, interest, something deeper that made them glow like sunrise. I am feeling many things. The classification of them is difficult. That's how you know it's working. They sat in comfortable silence, hands still joined, watching the nebula turn in its slow cosmic dance. Elliott felt the subtle vibration of her bioelectric field, a constant low hum that seemed to synchronize with his own heartbeat. I must tell you something, Ishara said finally. About bonding. About what I felt when I first completed your compatibility assessment. Go ahead. Althani bonding is not merely biological necessity. When we find true compatibility, we experience something called resonance, a synchronization of bioelectric patterns that feels like, she paused, searching for words. Like every part of your being recognizes its complement in another. Like coming home, Elliott said quietly. Her patterns flared bright. Yes, precisely that. When I analyzed your markers, I felt resonance for the first time in my life. It overwhelmed my rational processes. I defaulted to clinical protocol because I did not know how to process the emotional magnitude. Elliott turned to face her fully. You're saying you felt something real before you even talked to me. I felt everything. It terrified me. So I attempted to rationalize it, to reduce it to data. But resonance cannot be reduced. It simply is. What does resonance feel like now? She placed her other hand against his chest, over his heart. Like this. Your cardiac rhythm, your neural patterns, your bioelectric field, they harmonize with mine. Can you feel it? And he could. That vibration he'd felt from her skin seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat, creating a feedback loop that was both alien and profoundly intimate. Is this bonding? He asked. Are we bonding right now? No. Bonding requires conscious choice and biological exchange. This is merely resonance, the foundation upon which bonding could be built. She met his eyes. But only if both choose it. I will not claim you, Elliott Wade. Not unless you claim me in return. I need to understand what bonding means. All of it. Ishara nodded, her patterns settling to a steady violet. Bonding is permanent. Once initiated, our bioelectric patterns merge partially. We would share certain physiological responses, emotion, pain, pleasure. Over time, the bond deepens. Bonded pairs can sense each other across vast distances. They age in synchronization. When one dies, the other often follows within days. That's a lot. It is everything. Her voice held no clinical distance now, only raw honesty. It is why I should have asked permission. Why choice is not merely human sentiment but fundamental necessity. To bond without willing resonance on both sides is to create a hollow connection that causes suffering. Elliott thought about his life before Canine. The failed relationships that never quite took. The sense that he was always holding something back, waiting for something he couldn't name. And then these 3 months, the loneliness that had gradually transformed into something else every time Ishara walked into a room. Can I ask you something? He said. Something that's probably going to sound crazy. Specify. He laughed softly. There you go being clinical again. Her patterns flickered. Old patterns are difficult to break. Ask your question. How long have you felt this resonance? From the moment you arrived on station, I attempted to dismiss it as artifact of your alien biology. I conducted the compatibility assessment to prove to myself that what I felt was merely biological curiosity. She paused. It proved the opposite. And in these 3 weeks, the resonance has intensified. Each conversation, each shared silence, each moment of your laughter, it deepens the synchronization. If we continue, the resonance may become so profound that bonding becomes inevitable through sheer biological momentum. Is that what you want? Ishara's patterns dimmed to almost nothing, leaving her skin a pale lavender in the starlight. What I want is irrelevant. The question is what you want, Elliott Wade. Because once bonding initiates, there is no reversal. You would be tied to me, to my lifespan, to my bioelectric patterns, for the remainder of your existence. That sounds like marriage. I am unfamiliar with this term in full context. It's a human bonding ritual, a choice to commit to another person for life. It's not biological, it's emotional, legal, social, but the intent is similar, to build a life together. And this marriage, it is common among humans. Common enough, though it doesn't always last. We're not as locked in as Althani bonding seems to be. Then you understand the weight of what I offer. But your species maintains the option of separation. Mine does not. Her patterns brightened slightly. I need you to understand that choosing me means choosing permanence. Elliott stood, walking to the observation window. Behind him, he heard Ishara rise as well, her footsteps silent on the deck plating. I've been thinking about something you said, he began, about how Althani don't have the concept of home the way humans do. But bonding creates that, doesn't it? The bonded partner becomes home. Yes. Her voice was directly behind him now, close enough that he could feel her bioelectric field like a warm pressure against his back. The bond creates what you would call home, belonging, place. He turned to face her. In the nebula's light, her luminescent patterns glowed with an inner radiance that took his breath away. I've been lonely for a long time, he said quietly. I didn't realize how much until I met you. Until I started looking forward to these evenings. Until your laugh became the best part of my day. Elliott, let me finish. I know it's only been 3 weeks. I know by human standards, that's insane. But I also know that I've never felt with anyone else what I feel when I'm with you. If that's resonance, then I've been feeling it too. Her patterns flared so bright they cast shadows. You should take more time. Consider the permanence. I'm a doctor, Ishara. I've spent my entire adult life caring for people, helping them, and then moving on to the next posting, the next patient, the next temporary connection. I'm tired of temporary. He took her hands in his. I want something permanent. I want home. I want you. The bond cannot be broken, she whispered. I don't want it to be broken. You will age with me, die with me. Our bioelectric patterns will be forever intertwined. Good. Elliott Wade, you must be certain. I'm certain. 2 weeks ago. I've just been waiting to make sure you were ready to hear it. Her patterns cycled through colors he'd never seen before: joy, fear, hope, certainty, all blending together in a cascade of light. If we do this, we must do it correctly. Bonding requires ritual, intention, consent witnessed by others. It is not a casual process. Then, let's do it right. You would submit to Althani bonding protocols? The exchange is intimate. How intimate? She touched his face, her cool palm against his cheek. We must share genetic material, typically through exchange of blood, though other methods exist. The mixing of our biologies while in resonance creates the permanent bond. It is intense. I trust you. You should not trust so easily. I trust you, he repeated. Not easily, but completely. Ishara's patterns settled into a deep, steady violet that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. Then I will arrange the ceremony. It will take 3 days to prepare. In that time, you must be certain. If you have any doubt, any hesitation, you must tell me. I will not be the cause of your regret. I won't regret this. Your species bonding allows for dissolution. Ours does not. If you bond with me and later wish you had not, there will be no escape. You will be bound to me until death. Elliott pulled her closer, feeling the vibration of her bioelectric field intensify where their bodies nearly touched. Ishara, listen to me. I've lived 34 years without feeling what I feel with you. I've had relationships that lasted years but never felt as real as 3 weeks with you. If that's resonance, then it's the most honest thing I've ever experienced. You are certain? I'm certain. She pressed her forehead to his, an Althani gesture of intimate trust. Then in 3 days, I will bond with you. I will claim you, and you will claim me, and we will become something neither of our species has words for. Something new. Something like home. Yes, she whispered, like home. The 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Ishara explained that Althani bonding ceremonies were traditionally private, attended only by close witnesses who could verify the consent of both parties. Elliott chose Commander Strauss from the human contingent. Ishara chose her mentor, elder physician Korath. They met in one of the station's smaller medical bays, modified for the ceremony. Soft lighting replaced the usual harsh glare, and someone had brought in flowering plants from the station's hydroponics bay. The air smelled of earth jasmine and something sweeter, more alien. Korath was ancient by Althani standards. Their patterns faded to pale silver. They observed Elliott with eyes that had seen centuries. You understand what you choose, human? I do. Bonding is forever. The resonance will deepen until you cannot distinguish where you end and she begins. Your emotions will bleed together. Your pain will be hers. Her joy will be yours. Some find this beautiful. Others find it suffocating. I understand the risk. It is not risk. Korath's voice was gentle. It is certainty. The question is whether you embrace the certainty or fear it. Elliott looked at Ishara, standing across the room in traditional bonding garments. Simple, elegant, with her patterns glowing through the translucent fabric. I embrace it. Korath nodded to Commander Strauss. And you, witness? You verify his consent is freely given? Strauss, a gruff woman in her 50s who'd served on a dozen stations, stepped forward. I've known Wade for 4 years. He's steady, smart, and stubborn as hell. If he's made this choice, it's because he means it. She looked at Elliott. You sure, Doc? I'm sure. Ishara crossed the room then, her movements fluid and deliberate. She carried a small ceremonial blade, its edge gleaming in the soft light. The exchange must be blood to blood, heart to heart. The mixing of our biologies in the presence of resonance will create the permanent bond. It will hurt. I can handle pain. Not like this. The bond formation feels like every nerve igniting simultaneously. Some candidates lose consciousness. I'll stay conscious. Her patterns flickered with something like admiration. You are stubborn. You're not the first person to mention that today. She smiled, a human gesture she'd adopted, and it transformed her face. Then we began. The ceremony was simpler than Elliott expected. They stood facing each other, hands clasped. Korath spoke in the Althani language, words that seemed to resonate in frequencies Elliott could feel more than hear. Ishara raised the blade. "Are you certain, Elliott Wade? This is your final opportunity to refuse." "I'm certain, Ishara." He tightened his grip on her hands. "Claim me." She drew the blade across his palm, quick and precise. Blood welled up, bright red against his skin. Then she cut her own palm, and her blood was darker, with an iridescent sheen like oil on water. When she pressed their palms together, Elliott felt the first spark of it, a jolt like electricity that made his teeth clench. The resonance that had been a gentle vibration suddenly amplified, becoming a roar in his nervous system. "Do not let go," Ishara said, her voice strained. Her patterns were cycling wildly now, too fast to track. "The bond must complete or it will damage us both." Elliott held on. The pain built like pressure behind his eyes, in his chest, along every nerve pathway. He could feel Ishara's bioelectric field pouring into him, foreign and overwhelming, seeking to merge with his own. And then, just when he thought he couldn't take any more, something clicked into place. The pain vanished. In its place was a sensation unlike anything he'd ever experienced, a sense of expansion, of his consciousness stretching to encompass something other than himself. He could feel Ishara's heartbeat as clearly as his own, could sense her fear, her joy, her fierce protectiveness, all mingling with his own emotions until he couldn't distinguish between them. When he opened his eyes, Ishara's patterns had changed. Where before they'd been violet and shifting, now they held flecks of gold that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. And he could feel something new in his own body, a low vibration, a hum that hadn't been there before. "It is done," Korath said softly. "You are bonded. Congratulations to you both." Elliott pulled Ishara close, and she came willingly, her arms wrapping around him. Through the bond he felt her relief, her happiness, her bone-deep satisfaction. "How do you feel?" she murmured against his shoulder. "Like I'm home." The days that followed the bonding were an adjustment. The bond was a constant presence in Elliott's awareness, not intrusive, but always there, like a second heartbeat. He learned to sense Ishara's location on the station without asking. When she was stressed, he felt it as a tightness in his chest. When he laughed, her patterns brightened even if she was in a different section entirely. They moved into shared quarters, a compromise between Althani minimalism and human need for comfort. Ishara had stared at his collection of books with bewilderment until he'd explained that humans liked physical objects. Now those books shared shelf space with her medical texts and the small growing collection of earth things she was accumulating. A seashell, a smooth river stone, a dried flower he'd brought from the hydroponics bay. 2 months after the bonding, Commander Strauss stopped by their quarters with a bottle of whiskey and a satisfied expression. "Thought you'd want to hear the news," she said, pouring 3 glasses without asking. "Station Command approved the cultural exchange protocol. We're getting 12 more human, physicians, and a full Althani medical cohort on rotation. Mixed teams across the board." Elliott accepted the glass. "Because of us? Because you two proved it works. Human Althani collaboration in medicine has never been this successful." Strauss raised her glass. "You're a test case, Doc, and so far you're passing with flying colors." Ishara's patterns flickered with amusement. "We are data points after all." "Told you efficiency had its place," Elliott said. Strauss downed her whiskey. "Also, there's been 17 requests from Althani medical staff asking about bonding protocols with human partners. Apparently, you started something." Elliott felt Ishara's surprise through the bond before her patterns showed it. 17? "Turns out, you're not the only ones who've been feeling resonance. Just the first brave enough, or stubborn enough, to do something about it." Strauss stood. "Anyway, Command wants you to draft protocols, medical considerations, cultural compatibility, the whole deal." After Strauss left, Elliott and Ishara stood at their window, looking out at the nebula. His hand found hers automatically, and the bond hummed contentedly at the contact. 17, Ishara said softly. "I did not anticipate this." "Neither did I. But maybe it makes sense. If bonding creates home, and enough of us are looking for home, we may be witnessing the beginning of something new, a merging of species through choice rather than necessity." Elliott pulled her close, feeling her bioelectric field wrap around him like a warm blanket. Through the bond, he felt her contentment, her hope, and beneath it all, that steady certainty that they'd made the right choice. "Want to know something?" he said. "Always. I don't regret it, not even for a second." Her patterns brightened with joy. "That is fortunate, because I would not release you even if you asked. Still working on the romantic phrasing, I see." "I am bonded to you forever, Elliott Wade. You are mine, and I am yours until death takes us both. Our bioelectric patterns will dance together through all the years remaining to us, and when we die, we will die as one." She turned to look at him. "Was that more romantic?" Elliott laughed. The sound carrying through their bond and echoing back to him doubled. "Much better. I am learning your inefficient human ways. Our beautifully inefficient human ways." She pressed her forehead to his. That intimate gesture that he now understood carried the full weight of Althani devotion. Yes, beautiful. Outside, the nebula turned in its eternal dance, and inside, two beings who had been separate learned to become one. It was messy and complicated and required constant adjustment. It was everything Elliott had never known he wanted. It was home. If you have enjoyed the story, tell YouTube to send you more stories like this by subscribing to this channel, liking the video, and leaving a comment.